I went to the Shaw neighborhood to find 1336 8th Street Northwest to see the new townhouses that were built near the convention center. But I got there a little too late because the sun was going down and my camera was acting funny in the dark. So I only took a few more pictures before I called it quits for the night. In case anyone was interested in these $1.8 million homes, here's the information. But look at the name of the building. They're called Intersect at O Townhouses. That's an interesting name. Why call it that? Isn't O Street a few more blocks away? Actually, I don't know how far I am from O Street right now. I wasn't paying attention, and I have to admit I haven't been on this street for years, maybe 20 years. Once my family moved from Washington Apartments on 5th Street, there wasn't a need for me to come back over here in this direction. But I'll come back in a few days when the sun is still up. So I did come back on Saturday, and again I took the train to Mount Vernon Square Metro stop. I was walking up the street trying to see what still looked the same to me, and then I realized I should walk further up the street to O Street Market. That's a historic building, and I haven't been inside of it for a long time. So that's what I've decided to do. I'll finish taking pictures of the new townhouses on 8th Street and go to O Street Market. I circled the building, still taking pictures, and realized all of this is new. There's more than one new building on this street, and I'm sure the prices are sky high too. Look, there's a dog looking at me through the window. Who's this crazy lady taking pictures? So I circled the block and I ran into this sign, City Market at O. Now, what's that? Oh, that reminds me to go find the O Street Market. Now that it's daylight, I can tell where I am. Okay, where's the street sign so I can orient myself? 8th and P Street? What? That can't be right. Yes, I walked from 7th Street and crossed over to 8th Street, but P Street? I walked that far? That would mean I'm only 1 block away from O Street, and that can't be right. Let me walk back down 1 block. And oh yeah, I should have run into a giant food grocery store up here too. But where is it? Oh, look at the little retail shops and cafes on this block. All of these have to be new. I don't recognize any of this. Okay, so let's go look at the street sign at the end of the block. Wait a minute. 8th and O Street? That can't be right. Oh my goodness, across the street is the intersected O building. You mean to tell me I was at O Street the entire time? No way. Oh my goodness, look across the street. It's a giant grocery store. When did y'all do that? They've changed the entire layout of this street. First of all, this wasn't originally a street. This was a parking lot in between the Giant and the O Street Market. So what's the name of this new street? How do you pronounce that? That one I'll have to look up. But look at this new perspective. Now the Giant is on my right. When I was a 7th grader, the Giant was on my left. The parking lot was in the middle, and the O Street Market was on the right. You know, I think it's the new convention center that threw me off. I'm not used to it being so close to O Street. I call it the new convention center, even though it's over 20 years old. But it's not just a renovation of the old convention center, but they demolished the old one completely. The new one is bigger by covering 15 acres and 8 city blocks, and they named it after our former mayor, Walter E. Washington. It's weird walking around this convention center. I'm used to the old convention center. It was smaller than this one, but it was a building that said You are now in downtown DC. It was just 2 blocks long from 9th Street to 11th Street, and 1 block away from the MLK Library on G Street. Boy oh boy, have things changed around here. As you can see, the Shaw neighborhood is on the edge of downtown DC. I've been downtown plenty of times because my family and I used to live downtown or near downtown in several locations. But walking around here now seems so foreign. I feel like a tourist in my own city. When I was in junior high school, I was used to just walking downtown to the Metro Center train station on G Street, which was only 1 block away from the old convention center on H Street. Walking around the new convention center, I wonder what it's like living right across the street from it. I do love the idea of living across the street from the train station. Oh, wait, I forgot my mission. I was supposed to walk to the O Street Market. I was daydreaming, y'all. I got some exercise in, though. Let's stay on track and go back up 7th Street. Oh yeah, these McCullough apartment buildings across the street weren't here when I was young. I moved from this area in 1983, the same year when the church purchased the land to build the apartment buildings. What church, you may ask? We called it the Daddy Grace Church. It's right down the street from the train station. The founder of the United House of Prayer for All People Church was Charles Manuel Sweet Daddy Grace. He came to DC from Massachusetts and opened his second church here in 1926. He was called flamboyant because of his style of dress. He'd wear green and purple coats and paint his long fingernails red, white, and blue. The successor to Bishop Grace was Bishop McCullough. The church had a lot of wealth, and some of that wealth went into helping the people from the Shaw neighborhood, especially with food and housing. When I was younger, there was a convenience store on the corner of 7th and N Street before the McCullough apartment buildings were there. In my neighborhood, we never called them convenience stores. We called them corner stores. Well, because they were on or near the corner of an intersecting street. My brother asked me, remember that time when you came home from the corner store complaining that they didn't give you the correct change? So you went back to the corner store and they were closed? We both laughed really hard about that, because it was quite strange how this store was open at 5 p.m. and closed suddenly at 5:30. Another brother came home and asked, do anybody know why the corner store is closed? I bought a lot of candy from that store. I have a lot of memories there. Across the street is the 7th Street Savings Bank, and that was built in 1921 and has been used as office space for decades. To be honest, I have never seen anybody come in or out of this building. To all of the people from the Shaw neighborhood, let me know if you've ever seen anybody go in and out of this building. My shortcut to the Giant used to be the little parking lot on the side of this old bank, but there's an iron gate up now. I can't walk that way anymore, but I'm going to the O Street Market anyway, so let's walk 1 more block up. Across the street is the Gibson Plaza Apartments, and that building looks the exact same as it did 42 years ago. There it is, on the corner of 7th and O Streets, the O Street Market. It's smaller than I remember it. I remember there being a table that was selling flowers. I remember a fruit stand, a deli stand, and quite a few vendors selling seafood. I can't imagine what it looks like now. So let's go in and find out. Oops, the front door is locked. Okay, let's go around to the side door. This one is locked too. One of these doors has to be opened, right? I clearly see people moving around inside of there. please use main entrance. I thought this was the main entrance. This is the front of the building, right? A woman walked up to me and said, "You'll have to go all the way around the building to get in." I'm like, really? Okay, let's go all the way around the building. This is the entrance to the Giant. Well, let's go in. Oh, wait a minute. The O Street Market now houses the Giant Food grocery store. Well, I've learned something new today. Like I said, the O Street Market is a historic building. It's one of 3 old brick marketplaces in DC from the 1800s, still standing. The O Street Market, also known as Northern Market, was built in 1881. Eastern Market is on Capitol Hill in Southeast DC, and it was built in 1871. Georgetown Market in Northwest DC was built in 1865. The O Street Market was listed on DC's inventory of historic sites in 1968 and put on the National Register of Historic Sites in 1995. The O Street Market was a major shopping spot for the Shaw neighborhood. In the 1940s, the neighborhood and the market started to decline. By the 1960s, the O Street Market faced heavy competition from modern grocery stores and fell into disrepair. The market was slightly damaged during the DC riots in 1968 and just sat unused for years, but later was renovated and reopened in 1980. The closure of the market and many other nearby businesses caused a widespread decline in the neighborhood and left local residents without easy access to retail establishments. More renovations were planned for the O Street Market in 2003, but the roof collapsed from a large snowfall from a record-breaking blizzard in DC that year. No one was hurt from the incident because the building was empty for months in preparations for the old market to be turned into an upscale shopping center. Customers from the Giant and the neighborhood residents stood in the parking lot an hour after the collapse, just staring at the church-like building, which still had its outer walls and the tower still standing. After the Civil War in the late 1800s, a government official that headed the Board of Public Works named Alexander Boss Shepherd wanted to change the image of DC from a small, unattractive city to a growing city with a prosperous economy. To do that, sewers and water lines needed to be laid. The streets were graded and paved, trees planted, and unsightly problems needed to be removed, like the city's older public markets. So Shepherd planned to replace DC's public marketplaces with new permanent brick and mortar locations in heavily populated neighborhoods. One of the older markets was Northern Liberty Market at Mount Vernon Square. Shepherd had it knocked down in 1872. Many of the vendors refused to leave the property, while many others said they received inadequate notice to remove their belongings from the building before its destruction. Several lives were lost during the demolition of that building. Some of the disgruntled vendors and businessmen got together and created the Northern Liberty Market Company. Within a few years, opened a new public market in 1875 at 5th and K Street Northwest, blocks away from the original site. Shepherd continued with his plans for a city-owned public market and designated a southwest corner piece of land on Square 446 just for the building. This city block is surrounded by 6th, 7th, O, and P Streets Northwest. As he did with many citywide improvement projects, Shepherd awarded contracts to businesses in which he owned large amounts of stock in. After the corruption was discovered, Shepard was relieved of his post, and many of the city projects that he spearheaded were abandoned, including the new market. Shepard was so admired for his accomplishments on changing the direction of DC's residential and commercial corridors around the city that a neighborhood was named after him. Shepherd's Park is in Northwest. It's a residential neighborhood located in the northernmost part of Washington, D.C. It sits along the border of Silver Spring, Maryland, and Eastern Avenue Northwest. Georgia Avenue is to the east, the old Walter Reed Hospital is to the south, and 16th Street is on the west boundary line of the neighborhood. Much of the neighborhood was developed in the early 1900s, and Shepherd's Park has a suburban feel to it with large yards, tree-lined streets, and close proximity to Rock Creek Park. The new Northern Liberty Market struggled financially because many residents found it too far from their shopping district on 7th Street. So the Northern Liberty Market Company sought to relocate, and in 1881 they purchased the southwest corner of Square 422. This city block was bounded by 7th, 8th, O, and P Streets Northwest. Butcher Michael Hoover owned Square 422 in the early 1800s, and he sold it to a printer named Andrew Rothwell around 1845. Rothwell made lots of improvements to the property, and he added gardens to it, which became widely known as Rothwell's Gardens. The North Liberty Market Company applied for building permits for a one-story brick building on May 31st, 1881. The new building was named O Street Market to avoid confusion with the other markets in the company's portfolio. The area surrounding the O Street Market, known as the Shaw neighborhood, was demographically mixed. The white population included a large number of German immigrants, many of whom were vendors at the market. 7th Street Northwest was the heart of DC's Jewish community, and it was a large number of Black Americans who lived in the neighborhood too. The market continued to thrive even as the demographics of the neighborhood dramatically changed over the years. By the 1920s, Shaw was overwhelmingly Black. The Black vendors have replaced the German vendors, and Black-owned and operated businesses formed new retail corridors along 7th, 9th, and 14th Streets between P and U Streets. In 1977, local Black American entrepreneur James C. Atkins, he had purchased the market and the rest of Square 422. Atkins began construction on a modern grocery store next to the O Street Market and received a loan to help renovate it. Atkins said he would add stalls inside and outside of the market and lease them to vendors selling food and other products. Renovation of the historic building was more costly than anticipated, so Atkins needed more money in 1979 to complete the rehab. Atkins successfully petitioned the National Capital Planning Commission to close a portion of 8th Street in between P and O Streets because he planned to turn the street into a pedestrian mall and parking lot for his new development. The giant food grocery store opened on October 10, 1979, and the O Street Market reopened on February 23, 1980. But sadly, on March 31st, 1994, during the crime wave of the 1980s and 1990s, the O Street Market was the site of a fatal rampage. 17-year-old Kevin Aaron McCrimmon paid 5 young men to put a hit on 15-year-old Dewan Avant, who was known to frequently go to the O Street Market. The reason was because Avant had reportedly stole a car from McCrimmon. before 7 p.m., two masked men entered the market and fired more than 30 rounds, fatally hitting Avant and wounding 8 others, including a toddler and 2 elderly women. Although there were 399 homicides in DC that year, the event shocked everyone because it was such a brazen attack in a public place. By the late 1990s, the O Street Market had once more become dilapidated. The building fell into disrepair as trash collected around the building, and many vendors became squatters because they didn't have leases. The weed dealers and crew members stood on every corner, driving customers away. The building's owner fell behind on tax payments, and the city threatened to place a lien on the building and foreclose on it. In 2001, the Roadside Development Company purchased the building with plans to rehab the building along with the Madison Retail Group. They proposed a partial closure of the 40-foot wide plaza on 8th Street so it can be replaced with a sidewalk, parking lot, and retail space. The DC Historic Preservation Review Board refused to authorize these changes, but the renovation inside the building was approved. The last tenants of O Street Market consisted of some small restaurants and shops. They vacated the building in late 2002 in preparation for remodeling set to begin in March or April 2003, but a surprise blizzard in February collapsed the roof. The redevelopment of the O Street Market was delayed for 2 years as the developers were trying to meet the demands imposed by the Historic Preservation Review Board. The neighborhood leaders and residents demanded that the project continue in hopes to stimulate other development and decrease crime activity from crew members in the area. Roadside Development proposed an expanded redevelopment in June 2004 that included most of Square 422. The company determined that the only way to make the O Street Market viable was to increase the parking. It couldn't do so without building a massive underground parking lot, and to build the parking garage would require construction of new buildings across from the O Street Market. The O Street Market would be restored, renovated, and incorporated into a new 65,000 square foot giant food grocery store. The proposal also called for the city to reopen 8th Street. The O Street Market project received a setback in November 2007 when the DC Zoning Commission demanded that the development reduce the height of the new buildings to 90 feet from 110 feet and refused to reconsider its decision. Shaw residents denounced the zoning board's actions, which they perceived as jeopardizing the redevelopment of their poverty-stricken neighborhood. After Roadside met the height requirements by removing penthouse apartments, the Zoning Commission approved the project in late March 2008. The project received its final approvals from the Historic Preservation Review Board and the DC Office of Planning in April and May 2008. In the summer of 2008, the project was now called City Market at O. The 9-story project included over 600 units of housing, a 182-room hotel, retail space, and a new giant food supermarket that almost doubled the size of the original one. Plans were made to break ground in late 2009, but the official City Market at O groundbreaking was held September 1st, 2010. The original giant food on the opposite side of the plaza was closed and knocked down in 2011. And the project opened in stages. The 90-unit low-income senior apartment building opened August 21st, 2013, and the Giant opened November 21st, 2013. The Cambria Suites Hotel opened May 2014. And the final phase of the project, The luxury apartments at 880p is a 142-unit apartment building which was completed in 2017. The building is located at the intersection of 8th and O, across the street from the city market at O, and that's where my adventure began. The property was acquired by the DC government's RLA Revitalization Corporation around 1970 for the purposes of redeveloping it. The property has been used as a parking lot for years. The property next door was a church, and that property was incorporated into the new project. The Shaw neighborhood has become home to residents of many different ethnic groups and socioeconomic classes. Many Washingtonians earn a living working for the federal government or the local DC government. Shaw came to be known as DC's epicenter of black culture, and it was home to some of the most influential writers and artists such as poet Langston Hughes, scholar Carter G. Woodson, and jazz musician Duke Ellington. So, what is the name of this new street? This section of 8th Street has a French name. You would have to pardon my DC accent for not knowing how to correctly pronounce this name. I've been told that I sound like a cross between a New Yorker and a Southerner, which means my accent won't do this name justice. Cordelier Way is named after Jeff Cordelier, and so I won't butcher his name. Let's just refer to him simply as Jeff. Jeff was a DC gay activist who worked as a congressional staff member before working for the DC government. Jeff was unfortunately defeated by lung cancer in 2011 at the young age of 48 after being a long-term smoker. Jeff was credited with playing a key role in the efforts to repeal a DC law about the act of, shall I say, illegal intercourse, and to pass the city's first domestic partners law during his term as president of the Gay and Lesbian Activist Alliance from 1992 to 1995. Jeff was a native of Endicott, New York, where he graduated from Cornell University before joining the Washington staff of Representative Maurice Hinchey from 1993 to 1999. Since he was here in DC, he served on the staff of former DC Council member Sharon Ambrose for Ward 6, where he helped Ambrose draft legislation to help overhaul DC's liquor laws. In 1996, the city's Democratic Party appointed Jeff to represent DC on the Electoral College for the presidential election that year. He joined the staff of DC Council member Jack Evans for Ward 2 in 2001 and served there until 2004 when he left to take a position at the Alcoholic Beverage Regulation Administration. Jeff returned to Jack Evans' staff in 2007, and he remained on Jack Evans' staff until the time of his passing. At a ceremony on March 21, 2014, the Roadside Development Company designated a one-block section of 8th Street Northwest between O and P Streets as Cordelier Way. Although the street is open to the public and car traffic, it is part of a private land that was owned by the company in order to build the project. A company representative had said, "We worked with Jeff, who helped us bring about this development project. Jeff worked tirelessly with us on this and passed before the project was completed." Jeff was a long-term resident of the Shaw neighborhood. I want to thank my sponsors of this video, Michelle Wilson and Jesse Ingram, and I really want to thank everyone for giving me the grace to take time off to care for my father during his sudden illness and sudden passing. Me and my siblings do appreciate all the condolences from everyone. If I have anything to tell the fellas, it is this: get your prostate checked and have a colonoscopy. Your life may depend on it. I would have added more Shaw history to this video, but it's long enough and I'm tired. I have slurred enough words in this video. I'll make another video covering the Shaw area another time while walking down a different street. I want to thank everyone for taking another tour with me around DC. I am Dickie D, your DC tour guide, and I will see you around Washington.